Hello, good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise. It's a Saturday morning. Hope you've had a very good week, so far. Today, just in case you need to be reminded, is the 17th day in the month of August. Yes. Oh, you forgot that party you're supposed to go to? I'm sorry. Go get dressed. I'm sorry about that. By the way, hope you've had your cup of cocoa this morning. Well, I had mine, as I always remind you. I had mine. It's a cup of cocoa with a dash of honey. That's usually what I usually like to have. So, one of the major issues that we've discussed in the course of the week is that presidential jet thing, right? Well, the latest news coming out is that, the people may have released one of those aircrafts for some purpose or the other. I guess we'll find out about that one. We also understand there are so many issues just coming up from time to time about that same issue. Some policemen may have been arrested as a result of the whole thing. What all of that means, you'll find out in the course of the program today. That's just, something for us to know about ahead of time. Now, we also understand that, I need you to do me a favor. Tell us, what's food prices like in your area? There are those who believe that food prices have begun to come down, particularly that of pepper. Has it started to come down in your area? I'd like to know, because more and more people are, having some excitement about the fact that tomatoes are now a little cheaper, Tatase is now a little cheaper, and Rodo is now a little cheaper, and all of that. So let's know. Maybe some other people might be benefiting from that same thing in your own side of the country. Now, what have you done this week to make our country better? I was having a conversation with someone this morning, just passing by, and this guy said, well, you shouldn't use your own misfortune to come and give me some sorrow. Because I was saying it jokingly that if your own parents didn't run away when the slave traders came, you would probably also now be doing yo. I don't even know what that means. Of course, I think you have an idea of what he's talking about there. So what have you done today, in this week, to make our country better? There are those who believe that a lot has been done. Things are hard. There's no doubt about it. Things are really, really difficult. And there are those who are also saying that it's a global phenomenon. The same thing happening in different parts of the world. But I always say that I don't care what's happening in other parts of the world. I'm talking about what's happening in Nigeria. How did we get to the point where we are now? Someone was looking at the Ghanaian currency and saying, what? 15 CDs to 1,000 naira or something like that. How did it happen? I said, don't forget that Ghana had to rebase their currency. Is it any better now? I guess time will tell. What are we doing as individuals to make our country better? All kinds of allegations flying around. These people are doing this, those people are doing that. What have you done in your own neck of the woods? Those things are very important. I'm not doing too much talking this morning. Let's get into the show because there's so much to talk about. That issue about the presidential jets is not the only one that's gone sour in recent time. Don't forget the PNID case for those who followed that story, and a number of other cases like that. That a Chinese company can't do business with a Nigerian company or state if the federal government, the government of both countries don't talk. That's why it's always a G2G arrangement before a B2B arrangement, whichever way you want to put it. So finding the right investors, state contracts, that's the first conversation we're having this morning. And there is this thing I saw in the course of, I think it was in the course of this week, where someone was giving us the figures about elephants in the country as to how come the numbers are depleting simply because some people are chasing after ivory. More of that on the focus on National Elephant Action Plan. Now, what's the difference between losing weight and keeping fit? Aren't they the same? Are they the same? Do you automatically become fit as you lose weight? I guess we'll find out whether it is a situation or not during Lifestyle this morning. And our artist of the week, is in the entertainment industry. You'll find out more about that when that time comes. In the meantime, do me a favor, grab a cup of cocoa. I had mine, as I said, and let's have some fun. Thank you for staying with us. Let's get some understanding. Now, it's well known that international investment, law, and arbitration have been designed in a way to protect and promote FDI by offering the investor more often a multinational company a neutral forum to bring claims against the host state for breach of international investment treaty standards. Now, FDIs may impact the host state community, environment, and social context, and they affect that state's capacity to achieve sustainable development goals. Treaties usually do not contain provisions establishing any sustainability obligations as such upon investors. And investors are usually not involved in investment treaty-led or investment treaty-based arbitration as respondents. So counterclaims by states have been rare due to the limited jurisdiction of treaty-based arbitration and the lack of instruments to make investors accountable for their wrongdoings. And there are those who believe that that has also contributed to the backlash against international investment law and the investor-state dispute settlement, that is the ISDS mechanism, which have been accused of primarily benefiting the investor to the detriment of the state. Unfortunately, in most cases, it's the investor against a developing state. And developing states, the state in this context is usually about countries. Let's have conversations this morning with three gentlemen, all lawyers, by the way. Dr. Olabisi Akinkugbe is Associate Professor, Purdy Crawford Chair in Business Law, and from the Dalhousie University, Canada, and founding editor, Afronomicslaw.org. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Akinkugbe. We also have with us Professor Demola Abbas, who is a professor of international law. He is a former special advisor to the Lagos State Governor on overseas affairs and investments. So you could say round peg, round hole. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Let's begin with you, gentlemen. I understand Dr. Gbenga Ade has also joined us. He's a lawyer and chartered accountant, international business law expert as well. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ade.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today again.
Great. So let's begin with you, Dr. Akinkugbe. From all of the things that you know, the case in point, which has brought us this conversation so far, is that of the case between the Chinese company and Ogun State. What do you think is missing? What is wrong? What's going on?
Thank you very much. That's a good question. I think the place to start is to understand that there was a drive for investment by foreign investors. It is not uncommon for governments like ours to seek to woo investors in various forms. In this particular case, this was through a special economic zone. There was purported investment in there by this Chinese firm called Zhongcheng Fengchang, to be short. And so it was in the process of carrying out their supposed investment that they have alleged certain wrongs by this sub-state, Ogun State, some agencies of the federal government of Nigeria. But at the heart of that is the bilateral investment treaty that was concluded between Nigeria as a state and China. As you have rightly said, these type of treaties, it's not uncommon for parties who sign them to insert in them an arbitration clause. And most times it's about triggering a particular system of disputes that is called investor-state dispute settlement. Now, one might wonder, why is it that a state government supposedly driven investment has landed Nigeria in this kind of dispute? Well, it is because this is supposedly, or one can argue, an action that can be attributed to an agency or that is deemed to be part of an activity that the Nigerian state can be said to have undertaken. And so the investor in this state has, in this case, has triggered that particular investment arbitration and has taken Nigeria to the arbitration dispute settlement, and they won. And so it is out of trying to get the benefits of their dispute, which is in the rough figure about $70 million US plus whatever the interest is today, that has brought us this far.
Well, let me ask you also, Dr. Adeoye, from what we know, this case is, there are those who believe that it is similar to the PNID case in a way or the other. Now, our conversation this morning is not particularly making a specific case of the Zhang Cheng case that, we are talking about, as Dr. Akinkugbe rightly highlighted. But there are those who say that, it's just some international investors trying to fleece the nation in some way or the other, just as in the PNID case, which even though they won several cases back to back, in the PNID case, Nigeria eventually, won the case. So do you see any similarity here? Dr. Adeoye, that's for you, sir.
Yes, it's similar. Yes, it's similar to an extent. But it's important to note that 7 sections of Company and Allied Matters Act is devoted to foreign company participation. And so it's not out of place for investors to come into your country. There are 2 major reasons why people can come into a country. Number 1 is because of technical know-how, and number 2 is capital. And so as an investor, every capitalist wants to make sure that his investment is protected, and you don't want sudden breach of contract along the line. But also, we have a responsibility to ensure that every line in any agreement is looked into critically so that you don't shoot yourself in the leg. We understand that some foreign entities come into Nigeria basically to ensure that you breach the agreement so they can make claim, like you have in the P and ID case. So, but by and large, there is nothing wrong in having foreign investors in your country. It is important to note that there is no country that is totally self-sufficient. It is either you are buying raw material from a country or you are buying finished goods. It could also be that you are exporting raw material or finished goods. But what most countries try to do is to ensure that they engage in the value chain of every raw materials in their country. But technical know-how is one major factor that makes countries or states to call for investors into the country.
Let me ask you, Prof. There has to be some background to this particular case. The timeline we're aware of is that the whole conversation started in the year 2001. That's just 3 years into the Fourth Republic. You may also remember just 1 or 2 years into the into the Fourth Republic, you may also remember that was about the same time the president went all over the world clamoring for foreign direct investments into the country. And perhaps that's what informed China and Nigeria signing that bilateral investment treaty to encourage investment between the two countries. And of course, the foreign countries came, and one of which is this Zhujiang Fujian Industrial Investment Company. So given this and a number of other things that may be, what's the background that Nigerians need to know from your experience or from what you know about this particular case until we got to this point?
Thank you very much, Ayo, and nice to see you again. Well, I think that is a very important question you asked, because sometimes when things like this happen, there's a lot of emotions involved. Number one, as nationals, Nigerians are quite rightly, we are upset that a foreign country has seized our assets. So we understand the human emotions. However, whereas humans can be emotive about this, a country cannot afford to be emotive. And that is because there are serious legal issues here. Our country, will still be dealing with other countries. You rightly said, 2001, Nigeria and China signed the BIT, Bilateral Investment Treaty, which is to promote commercial interaction between the two countries. But more importantly, for each signatory to that treaty to be able to protect investors in each other's country. That is very important. It's important because that is what is an issue. And anybody who has taken time to read the judgment of the Court of Appeal, Columbia District, which we are dealing with August 9, 63 pages, will know that is the core of the matter. Let me first of all clarify something before I even came there. I get to that, the timeline. There is a wrong notion that it is between China and Ogun State. No. Ogun State, obvious, as I said, 2001, there was a treaty between Nigeria and China. 2007, Ogun State, in furtherance of that treaty, then decided to conclude, to instigate a commercial relationship with Chinese companies to be able to set up a free trade zone in Ogun State here. 2010, then Ogun State again contracted Zhujiang company to develop industrial park within that particular trade zone itself, which was done in 2010. And, there was a lot of activities, and Ogun State made almost 160 million naira, or Nigeria made 50 million naira from tax generated during that particular time. Let's keep that in mind. 2016, Ogun State then terminated the agreement between it and that particular entity, the Zhujiang entity. Now, I'll clarify again. Any contractual party, any party to a contract has its right in international law or in domestic law to terminate a contract, provided that you do it in accordance with the regulation between you and the other party. And if you don't, then you have to be able to face the consequences. When that happened, of course, the other party, the Zhujiang party, was quite upset. In record, they then thought that they were being, gone after by Nigerian authorities and this and that. Then they went to Nigerian court. Don't forget, they filed a suit in 2018 in both federal and state court in Nigeria. That's even not 2018, the suits were continued. The first time they tried to bring an arbitration was about 2019 in Singapore. They didn't go through. Then they went to the UK and they filed an arbitration in the UK. That took place in 2021. United Kingdom awarded them about $55 million. And on record, they claimed Nigeria did not pay, which then made them to go in 2021 to the district court, which is like a high court in Colombia and the United States, to be able to bring that. Now, the question then is, in terms of time, what encouraged them to do that? You will remember very well that by 1976, the U.S. Congress had adopted the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act, FSIA. And that act is basically to allow United States Court to recognize and to be able to enforce arbitral awards granted overseas. So the award in question here was the award granted to Zhujiang by a UK court to be enforced in the United States. That was until 2022. And the first reaction of Nigeria was that the District Court of Columbia did not have jurisdiction over the case. Of course, the court affirmed its jurisdiction. I don't want to go into details of why they did that. And Nigeria then promptly appealed to the Court of Appeal. That decision was given last week, which is August the 9th. And it was that decision that then the court said, okay, China can go after the assets of Nigeria into the seizure of our 3 aircraft in France. That is the timeline, 2001 and 2024. I haven't gone into the meat of it. I think we're still going to go into the meat of the matter it needs to be. Because one of the reasons that Nigerians have been upset of where we are getting concerned is whether a foreign country can impede another country or can seize our asset, which seems to be a violation of our sovereign immunity. That is not going to be the case. But I hope we are going to get there. But that is the timeline you have asked. So that is how things have panned out. So number one, It is not between Ogun State. It's not between Ogun State and China. No, actually, because the treaty we are talking about is between Nigeria and China. Ogun State only happens to be an entity that is, involved there because they were the one that did the contract, but it's Nigeria that is actually involved here. So we come to
Dr. Akinkugwe, the presidency has spoken, and the presidency was reacting to an action taken by a Chinese company. And the position of the presidency is that the Chinese company is trying to reap more than it sold, or whichever way we want to look at it, depending on the side of the elephant you're looking at. Do you see any justification in the claims being made by the Chinese company?
Thank you very much. So I think before I come to the more pinpointed answer to that question, it's important to contextualize it. That the dispute settlement regime that we're talking about today, that is the ISDS, is not one that is necessarily celebrated around the world. A private sector practitioner might as well say, it brings me a lot of income that I have to do this work, so I do not care. But there's a fallacy out there that if you have investors coming to your country, it almost always generates some kind of economic growth or economic development. There's in fact no real empirical evidence to back that up in the case of investor-state agreements or investment agreements. The generality out there in terms of empirical evidence is that these agreements oftentimes actually end up creating more challenges in terms of environmental situations, in terms of crisis like we are going through now. And so there's a whole lot of scholarship in there that shows that investor-state dispute settlement, particularly this type of arbitrations, are systemically generated against the interests of developing countries. Why is that so? One can think about, number one, the exorbitant nature of damages that are often given. We have referenced P&ID today. The second way we think about it is that they also actually limit the policy space that governments have to take actions that are necessary for their government, for their development. As such, it is not unusual for investors to trigger this type of disputes on the ground that certain kind of provision, the general clause, which is called fair and equitable treatment provisions, has been breached. This particular type of provision gives them a significant leeway to make different types of arguments that really, almost always finds the host state in breach of the agreement.
But is that out of place? Just a second. Is that out of place, really? Because in most cases, you find out that the state, whichever country it is, always has more power than a company.
It is indeed out of place, but this is the regime we're talking about. It is the system. And what we're talking about is a systemic inequality. It is the fact that when this type of regime started many years ago, a lot of our states were still under colonial rulership.
I'm not even talking about Nigeria in this case, Dr. Akinkugwe. I'm talking generally. I mean, and I'm almost certain that this provision you're talking about is not only restricted to Nigeria or affects just Nigeria, definitely affects other countries as well. So it begs the question whether or not indeed, it is out of place simply because on a good day, one policy from a government can knock off any benefit that will come to any company from any part of the world. So that's the basis of the question I'm asking.
Well, the basis of it is you can say, the policy can knock off, but this is an agreement, right? I mean, contractually, we do talk about sanctity of contracts. And everybody would need to say, once you've signed it, you should work on it. But the premise for signing any type of investment agreement, bilateral investment treaties is that governments will not take actions that will frustrate the investment of the investor, that will frustrate them from recuperating their capital and profits that come from it. So it's not unusual. But the point I'm trying to make, which is to answer your question more directly, is that this particular kind of practice is seen everywhere in the world. In fact, to draw a very interesting example, Honduras right now is currently fighting an $11 billion case against an investment, right, that is made in a special economic zone, similar to ours, against a U.S. investor called Prospera, right? The past 3 years has seen a series of cases in Europe on the account that the government took measure to regulate their environment for more enhanceable climate-friendly situations. And so there were 3 cases that at least went to arbitration. So the point is, all over the world, there is a division, both amongst scholars mainly, maybe less so amongst practitioners of law, about this particular regime that has triggered the case for its reform. And the case for its reform sits on 2 types of legs. One, there is the case for the procedural reform of the investor-state dispute settlement. There is the case for the substantive reform of the investor-state dispute settlement. The procedural reform really looks at issues that come out of, for example, an arbitrator who already represented a party, subsequently sitting as an arbitrator on a panel subsequently. You call that double hatting in the technical sense. There are other issues in terms of updating the rules that regulate arbitration that has been attended to, but that's not weird. Most countries have issues. Most countries have issues in relation to the inequality that is embedded in this regime. The idea that an investor can sue a state and the state is left only at the mercy of counterclaims. That really is the heart of the problem that academics have pointed out at investor-state dispute settlement and its overall investor-state agreement, that it is very asymmetrical and does not carry on or concern the interests of the investor-state. I'll give an example and then I'll pass it on. If you think about the fact that a state like Nigeria or Honduras, right, have significant debt profile. At the top of this interview, we mentioned our ideal to, achieve sustainable development goals. Well, you know what? The capacity of a Nigerian state, of Honduras as a state, to achieve its other economic development goals or climate-oriented actions is significantly undermined. If, in addition to, for example, servicing its debts, which is very high, it's having to bleed through this kind of awards to investors. And in some cases, the investments hardly ever do anything. And so the last thing I'll put on that is the calculation, the quantum of damages. Academics have asked questions about that. One might look at this one and say, Professor Abbas indeed mentioned the actual amount that was given. When I said 70 million, is if you think about the additional costs of defending the action and minor damages that were given, that takes it up to 70 million.
Okay.
But the truth is also that is also an issue generally. But I'll leave it here and we can come back to that.
Thank you, Dr. Akinkugbe. Dr. Ade, I don't know if you have looked at the case, the judgment and all of it. Now, you mentioned the PNID case the other time, which started itself like this one. That one actually was between Nigeria and a different company, altogether. Now, if we're to look at the value or merits of both cases, and as you said, PNID got judgments all, up until a particular time that the federal government, got a judgment in its own favor. Meanwhile, there were Nigerians who were saying, look, let's settle this PNID case once and for all. Let's pay whatever we needed to pay and all of that. So there are those who said that there were some collusions in that particular case, the PNID case, between Nigeria and some Nigerians and, on the side of those other organizations. Do you see a similar thing in this case? Because there are those who are already alleging that maybe there are some Nigerians who are also, trying to make some money off of this case against Nigeria.
Well, I can't say that categorically at this point in time, but the caution I need to give to state government is to make use of professionals in every agreement. Now, when you are terminating a contract, everybody knows. I mean, lawyers are on this panel, all of us, almost all of us are lawyers here. When you are terminating contract, you must bear in mind that there are consequences. And so what you look for is the window where you are able to prove that the other party has breached a fundamental element of the contract. And if you have that in place, you don't allow the other party to hit you below the belt. And just like we take court processes in Nigeria, where government normally think that, well, this is an entity that is not an individual that you can physically imprison or do anything to, we take into
Well, I'm pretty sure that we'll get Dr. Adeoye back on that particular case issue that we're talking
about. That was a breaking communication there.
Yes, I noticed.
When I was talking.
Yes, go ahead.
What I'm saying is that the government, the responsibility still lies on the government. Now, when you look at state government, international community do not recognize state because most of the contract has a sovereign guarantee embedded therein. And so taking over our presidential jet is a very good option. I hope you are aware that this is not the only asset these guys are laying hands on. I think they've taken our house at Liverpool also, in which case they come up to say this is the value of the property. So my concern is, where are the lawyers working for the state government at the Ministry of Justice? Forget about the decision of any governor either to sign or to cancel contract. We have professionals, lawyers, who are supposed to look at the various elements of every contract. Even you at channels as an individual, if you have contract to put your transmission equipment somewhere, or you have your building somewhere, and then your landlord suddenly want to terminate the contract, you will actually exploit legal means to ensure that you are compensated. But again, I feel that it is our duty as a government to ensure that whenever somebody has breached fundamental terms of the contract, we take action faster than them, and where they have taken action against us, we put people who are knowledgeable about the contract. But let me tell you, the major challenge that I found in my country is that, lawyers will tell you clauses that will put you in bondage in every contract. They are very tiny. They don't appear at the early part of contracts. The clauses are hidden somewhere, and you see clauses that are negating other clauses that are earlier. And so at the point of reading the contract, every line item should be studied. But because we're looking for money, sometimes we forget that you may get the investment and you will lose times 10 of what is in your country. So again, terminating contract is something we need to exercise caution about, because it's a friendly relationship that is supposed to be, because Nigeria has bilateral treaty with China. So I wouldn't say that there are people who play the role that some guys play in the P and ID case, but I would say sometimes it is negligence on the part of professionals who ought to study properly and advise the political office holders and say, if we do this, these are the implications.
Well, while there is value and credit in the position that you have taken, Dr. Adeoye, the reason for the question is not far-fetched. For instance, how did this company, not even the country, how did this company know that Nigeria had assets such as aircrafts in certain specific places in the world? That they went to those places to ask for them. That's the basis of the question, really. But let me.
No. I don't think there are issues with that. Every aircraft has a number. Every vessel, every ship, wherever you are in the world, they can track you. Whether you've gone for repairs or you are in the middle of the sea. If we had vessel, they could seize our vessel. They could seize anything. This is applicable in international law.
Okay. Dr. beg your pardon, Professor Abbas. Now, what is it that Nigerians need to know about this judgment? We know it started some time ago, I think about 2016, 2018 or thereabout. But what is it that Nigerians need to know about the judgment? Because I'm not sure everyone, 200 million Nigerians have read it. Yet we're all feeling that this is a huge, avoidable embarrassment.
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. And I think I like the last part of your sentence, that is a huge, avoidable embarrassment. I will add international to it. But let me clarify certain things. Look, first, whenever we have cases like this, for goodness sake, let's try, as very decent people in Nigeria, let's try not to quickly assume that somebody is just trying to fleece us or there is a fraud somewhere along the line and this and that. I say that because sometimes it's just like, little baby crying. Sometimes we leave undone that which we ought to have done. Let me give you a simple example. Nigeria didn't even need to be involved in this case at all. If Nigeria had not agreed to the arbitration clause in the first place, you don't have to agree to arbitration. And the court in the United States made it clear on that judgment that you are talking to, and I read the whole judgment, 63 pages. You go to pages 18 and pages 22. Judge Miller's judgment made it very clear that Nigeria didn't even need to agree to the arbitration at all. The moment Nigeria agreed to the arbitration, made itself part of that, having signed the treaty on behalf of the country itself, then you made yourself part of that. So, of course, they wouldn't go after Ogun State. They would go after the country because the country is a part of the one that signed that particular treaty. So let us stop looking for a needle sometimes in a haystack. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying in PID or in other cases there will be no. I'm not saying there might not be in some cases there will be no basis for suspecting fraud and this and that, but not in every case. In this particular case, it's going to be very, very hard because we have left undone complete so many things. I'll give you another example. The basic issue in this particular case is the FSIA, that is the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act, concluded obviously in New York in 1976. Nigeria acceded to that, didn't sign it, but acceded to it, agreed to be, for the arbitration to continue. So you cannot approbate and reprobate in law at the same time. So we have accepted that particular responsibility that we're going to be part of it. Now, so Nigerians need to know, number one, we have a lot of unforced error. Cast your mind back to Bakassi case as an example. Again, we were very upset and so many things and this and that, but we forgot. I'll tell you something. Let me give you an anecdote. I was a postgraduate student in Cambridge in 1997 when I walked up to Professor James Crawford of blessed memory now, who was my professor there, and I asked him a simple question. He was leading Nigerian case in Bakassi, in the ICJ, then General Court of Justice. And I said, sir, what are the chances of my country winning this case? And Professor Crawford looked at me straight in there. I said, Nigeria will lose the case, but as lawyers, we have to try our best for it. And I said, on what basis? Now, remember, one of the plank arguments of Nigeria and Bakassi was that the agreement, Makusa agreement, signed by Gowon, that Gowon signed the agreement without the concurrence or the approval of the Supreme Military Council, SMC then. You don't make that argument in international law. Gowon was the head of Nigeria, head of state of the country. So whatever the internal irregularities that attended the act of a head of state or a minister representing the country cannot be imputed to a foreign country, because a foreign country doing business with you will not be asking, oh, did your minister comply with your internal regulation before they come and sign the treaty, or did your head of state comply before they come and sign? No. The head of state, any top official of Nigeria who had that competence will be taken to have the competence to be able to do that. So we need to avoid a lot of unforced errors. There are too many unforced errors. And I think I agree partly with what the last speaker said. I think
Dr.
Ade said.
Yeah.
Dr. Ade said. We need to be very, very careful, when we sign the agreement. I think what I've seen so far, again, this is not casting aspersion. Nigeria seems to continue to make a particular mistake in which whenever we have cases of purely international law matters, we send in professors of contract. There is a remarkable difference between contract within domestic law and contracts at international law. They're very, very good. In international, you dealing with, as a clear example is, for instance, a very seasoned international lawyer will have put a single case up in the US court. What about espousal right? It was actually brought on by the dissenting judge, Judge Castas. In this point, there were 3 judges, Millet, Castas, and the other judge. Judge Castas was dissenting, and he made a point that what about the espousal right? Now, what does the espousal say? If there is a contract between a country and an individual, the individual cannot sue the country. What that individual will do will be to go to his own country, our own country, or the country to espouse that individual's right before the court. So in this case, the Chinese company will have gone back to the country, China, and asked China to protect or to vindicate its right against Nigeria. That is called espousal right. Of course, the other judges rejected that you didn't apply in this particular case. But we didn't even make that particular argument. In international law, we call it mad romantic case. We have a lot of international jurisprudence cases on such things, but we don't do that because we put our wrong foot forward. We keep sending professors of contract law on seriously international legal matters. That is what Nigerians need to know. And that's why I say I agree partly with what Dr. Ade said. That's very important. So let's stop suspecting fraud in every single international case. And coming back to what you said earlier, I ran investment for Lagos State government. Every investor who wants to put $1 in your country wants to be sure if there's a crisis, their dollar is protected. Now, every investment that comes to your country to do investment in your country wouldn't necessarily agree that it is only the law of your country that should grant investment, because the law of the country can work for you. After all, it's in that country. So imagine if I come and invest money in Nigeria from, let's say, Antigua or wherever, and then I'm saying if there's a crisis between me and Nigerian government, it's Nigerian government that will apply. Or Nigeria saying it's Antigua government. No, what those parties will do, 2 of you will do, is to build a compromise, we call it international law, that a third state arbitration will apply. In this case, that was what happened. So there's nothing wrong in that. However, a country does not need to agree to a particular arbitration. If Nigeria did not agree to it, we wouldn't have been pleaded in this particular case at all. They will have gone to court, we will have alleged lack of jurisdiction, and the case will have died there, and they could have settled out of court. So again, let us be mindful of that. But see, by and large, I think there are many lessons for Nigeria as a country to learn from this. Number 1, as I said, let's be very, very careful before we jump onto arbitration clause. Number 2, there should be a greater cohesion between our states authorities and the federal government authorities. As I said earlier on, the case is not between Ogun State and the Chinese company. No, Ogun State was not implicated in the court, and Ogun State could be within its right for terminating the contract. You and I don't even know the fact of the contract. You have to read the case itself. Even at the Court of Appeal in the UK, the District of Columbia, they didn't go into the meat of the matter, because what was in issue was whether the initial court the Chinese company went for, that is the district court, whether it had jurisdiction or not. Which confirmed jurisdiction, then Nigeria appealed to the Court of Appeal in Colombia, which again confirmed. So they were only dealing with jurisdictional issue, and they went into the issue of sovereign immunity, which I don't think we're going to have time to actually go into that too. So that is the substance is not the issue. So unless you and I know what actually transpired between the Ogun State and that company, we cannot effectively comment on it. The only reason I know that is because I read the whole judgment in the UK in the arbitral award, and I also read the whole judgment that was given in the US. So I know the fact, but the fact I know the issue here. But what we are talking about is the processes that we lend ourselves to. So it's very, very important.
Well, there's something, there's something Dr. Akikugbe said earlier, Prof, and I'd like you to quickly speak to before I go back to him, because I know he's also raring to respond to some of the issues that you've raised. And that's the fact that it would seem like the international investors usually get the upper hand, so to speak, in the arbitration matters, even in the laws, the ISDS that you all have referred to. It would seem like it always favors more the investor as opposed to the host country. And unfortunately, in most cases, it would seem like the developing countries suffer more in that regard. We are not all unaware of, I'm not sure it was Zimbabwe or Zambia, where the Chinese companies were said to want to take over certain, infrastructure of the country. Some even say, they want to take over certain social services or even security apparatus of the country. So, is there any way to adjust that, Prof?
Thank you very much for that. You know what I always say in this kind of situation is that if your sport is riding on the back of a tiger, then don't cry wolf if you end up in the belly of the tiger when it's hungry. More often than not, the first time we actually respond to this kind of thing is when these agreements break down. You and I never actually care to know what terms did this country agree to. And I'm not talking only about Nigeria here. I'm talking about their countries. And look, I know many countries in Africa here that experienced conflict. After conflict, they were rearing. They were hard pressed for money, and they were willing to do any deal whatsoever to be able to get foreign currencies. So China went to some countries in West Africa, yes, Sierra Leone and co, including in Central Africa like DRC and East Africa, and they were able to do silly deals in which countries box them, some of them up to 25, 50 years of mining rights to certain countries, including China. Now, when they default, and then these entities now go after the property, then we cry wolf. So it's important for us to take a step back and be very careful in the kind of agreement we agree to.
Well, Prof, my apologies. Thank you, Prof. Dr. Akinkugbe, I know you want to respond to that as well, but here is the angle that I'd like you to look at. I just went on the website of the Lekki Free Trade Zone, and I'm seeing that indeed there are quite a number of companies who are not of Nigerian descent in that are listed as investors at the Lekki Free Trade Zone. So it's not, in other words, I'm saying it's not that it cannot be done. It has been done. It is being done. Are there lessons to learn, particularly for other states in that regard, such that we don't have this kind of embarrassing, as some people have put it, avoidable and embarrassing situations?
Thank you very much again, Aya. So I think I'll go straight to this question. I think the idea is not to demonize special economic zones or free trade areas. No, I think they have their purpose. As you have rightly said, there are other corporations within this particular economic zone that are still working. The point, though, is one that has been made in different forms in the course of conversations on this panel. And it is that there is an obligation on a state or a country that has invited investors into its countries to make sure that it is standing very well on its legal, economic, and political standings very well. In this case, you can think about what is the legal sense. You have to think about the fact that if you're making, as an example, any laws or new law that may impact investment, that you are properly advised. And Dr. Adeoye mentioned it. Having a lawyer that is skilled or a team of lawyers that are skilled at their work is not about having them only at the time of drafting the contract. If there has been turnover in the office or in the Department of Justice, or the firm that you acquired, that you briefed, is no longer working on that, it will fall through the cracks. It means the National Assembly or the State Assembly or the Federal Legislature will pass a law that may impact, right, that particular investment, for which the investor may then say, there is a law that has here impacted our investment. It's also about political action in the change of government. Governments have to advise themselves very well, and I mean governance, executive persons who have been elected into offices who might think that there are actions that need to be taken to, make the state much more economically viable for one reason or the other. When they are taking those political actions, it can actually also be the basis of an investor action if it impacts the action of the investor negatively. So, there is a portion of this that one has to understand at the national level that runs through various areas. And these provisions are common in every BIT. Look, BITs are hard to negotiate out of, I have to say, I'm now segueing back to Professor Abbas's point. I think the idea that a state like Nigeria, who is seeking investor or any other sub-state, can say, I don't want the ISDS provision, is not really looking at it with the context within which a state like Nigeria wants it. Every government that comes in promises foreign investment. They will go on these dance shows around countries and they will tell us we have secured this amount that is coming in. Of course, the investor will want to be protected. So, particularly, bilateral investment treaties are a species of agreements that have existed in their old for so many years, and 90% of this type of agreements that's in existence today are skewed against many developing countries. And developed countries are realizing that today as well. Now, if one talks about newer investment agreements, about 10% of them are in existence. They are not necessarily the basis of any kind of dispute, but the reason they are new is because they attend to sustainable development crisis, climate change issues, environmental regulation, and so on and so forth, which states want to be able to do to make sure that they are acting in consonance with their obligations in other international agreements, like, for example, the Paris Agreement. So to come back to the question, I think there is a nuanced way in which Professor Abbas's point can be presented differently, in the sense that the international law dimension of this in relation to the foreign enforcement dimension, which is happening in New York, is critical. And there's no reason for Nigeria not to make sure that it is effectively defending that, right, and availing itself of all forms of international law defenses. But the basis of that particular enforcement that is sought is actually the breach of a contract, right? Investor-state contract. And at the heart of investor-state contract agreements or investment agreements is contract and property law. So I think they all overlap. And there's something that we're all saying in here, that number one, at the level of drafting the agreements, it is critical for the government to ensure that they put their best foot forward. I worked in a project that brought forth arguably Lekki Concession Company, right? But the drafting of those kind of agreements, as Lagos State has done in many of its own agreements, tries to engage with the best legal minds available that are skilled in that area. Number two, that we have signed an agreement is not the end of it. Contract administration is critical. We do have to have people who monitor the terms on which the agreements are being performed, and to ensure that they are being performed to the letter to protect Nigeria as a state, but to also hold the investor accountable to their own obligations, such as environmental protection. And number three, that when, as Dr. Adeoye has said, we perceive that there is some kind of violation of this agreement, we do not sleep on our rights. Likewise, when we have been taken to court, we don't wait till the last minute to then try to put our house in order to appear in court. So I think, there are issues we can look at that tries to address the way Nigeria has defended. But I think there are much more deep issues that we have to address about the nature of the beast we are dealing with. The investor-state dispute settlement regime is not unique to Nigeria. Developing states across the world are pushing against it. Senator Warren has a letter that if you just Google online right now, is there about 6 pages to the US Senate telling them this particular regime should no longer be there. The United States, Mexico, Canada recent agreement that has just been completed has phased out ISDS between some of the states, and there are steps being taken to make sure this doesn't come back. So we might say we are doing our best. On the one hand, to try to say certain actions are being taken to negotiate properly to ensure we have terms that are in those agreements, but an investor that is coming in with $1 billion may not want to subject themselves to Nigerian government, to Nigerian court, as Professor Abbas has said. They choose the laws of another country. And so in that sense, we have to start thinking about how we do things differently. There are other investment ways that we can, as a state, put our foot down as the way to go, other than pushing ourselves down this treacherous ISDS regime.
Very interesting, Dr. Akekugbe. So let me go to you, Dr. Adeoye. This happened between Ogun State and a company in China. Now, what's interesting here is that the case wasn't championed by China, even though the bilateral agreement is between Nigeria and China. Well, I'm just trying to help some people understand how it is that the organization, the company, didn't go for the investment of Ogun State in other parts of the world. They went for Nigeria's investments, assets. It wasn't even the Chinese government that was taking that step on behalf of that company, even though it was on the basis of that bilateral agreement that that company came into Nigeria to do business. So help us understand that basis.
Okay. You've heard about Lekki Free Zone. What you have in Ogun State is a zone that is created by law, NEPSA, Nigeria Export Processing Zone Authority. And so that is not within the purview of any state. Free zones are creations of laws. And if you look at what Obasanjo did during his regime, the essence of free zone is to bring investors into the country and then make them feel comfortable that they are outside custom territory. So what free zone does is to say that every company that is existing in the free zone, they are more or less in their country, untouchable, exempted from all taxes, and it is because we want production in the country. Now, when you look at after the cancellation of the agreement, you have a right under international law to ventilate your anger through an arbitral process, which is already in the contract. Now, for every contract you enter into in a country, the laws of your country, that is Nigeria now, the country has a status that is recognized under international law. And so if you are seizing asset, you are better off to go after what belongs to that country. By virtue of that agreement between the Chinese company and Ogun State, by inference, an agreement has existed between, or a right has existed between that company and the Nigerian authority. And so you will realize that if we probe further into this matter, the processes have been long, ongoing. And so I want to believe that we could have done better than we have done. This matter ought not to get to this level. It is like a student entering university. You must, when you are entering the university, because the university has the skill to give to you, the knowledge, the hostel, and the classroom, you must comply with the regulation of the university. So in this case, don't let anybody deceive us. Everybody that is receiving money, you stretch forth your hand, the person giving you money says, no, I want to put it in the middle of your palm, or I want to put in one palm now, or bring your pocket, I want to put it. This is how investment is done. Whoever is bringing out money, usually there's no way you think about it. The terms will favor you. Just go and check every offer letter from banks. When you want to take loans, they're going to put certain things. Interest rate is this. Repayment is 18 months. If there is a change in the basis point by the central bank, this is what you're going to do. So let's not blame international investors. You want to protect yourself because you are putting down your money and you don't want to be caught unaware. And if you don't go to a third state, court system, you are going to run into trouble, because we believe that if we go to your country will want to favor you. If we do it in Nigeria, of course, the whole thing will be scuttled. And so that was what led to the issue of having to go to UK and then now the US. So for every investor, you want to protect yourself. So I do not blame any organization exploring options to get redress. But my problem is that because of the bilateral treaty between Nigeria and China, if you have any problem with any Chinese company, you don't even have to go through the court. Immediately, the Chinese ambassador, they are there. You sit down, you look at it. What are the fundamental terms that have been breached? What is the focus? The question to then ask is, what happened to Guangdong Free Zone in Igbesa? Don't forget, this is my state. Ogun State is my state. So I'm concerned about that state. So it could also be that there are, actions that you ought to take as a state receiving investment to complement what the investor is doing. So if you fail to do that, then they will also have a reason to breach certain fundamental terms. So in all of this, I think we should just get serious as a country. We should not be lackadaisical at the state level, and we should not take other parties for granted. And of course, when you have a foreigner that has brought money to your country, you must be watching them, because nobody, the Yoruba says everybody, they want to, put everything to favor them. So I believe that we ought not to have gotten to this level. And even when you went to arbitration, there was an arbitral award. What did you do? You can sit down and then negotiate and discuss. Okay. So, in my view, government has a role to play, but at the same time, how did you monitor them over time in that place so that you put it at their doorstep that they are the one breaching the agreement? In that case, you are the one having the claim.
Okay. Well, Dr. Ade, you raised an important issue, and I'd like to ask Prof about that one, Professor Bass. He asked the question whether or not there was an interface between the Ogun State government, this Zhongshan company, as well as the Chinese embassy or government in Nigeria. Do you think that could have staved off this embarrassment?
Well, yeah. Look, there's no reason why you cannot conduct arbitration simultaneously with other political avenues to resolve international disputes. Diplomacy can be conducted on different levels. So there's no reason not to do that. But however, I think one thing we have to keep in mind, and I think I've said that a couple of times now, the case is not between Ogun State and the Chinese government, no, or the Chinese company, no. The contract is between them. What was the issue in the court was between Nigeria as a signatory to the BIT and China. The obligation of Nigeria is towards those Chinese companies that came to invest in Nigeria. So what the company back to your question, why they didn't sue Ogun State, is that you can only sue Ogun State for a breach of the contract, you get damages, which is minimal. That is not the problem of the Chinese company. The Chinese company is saying Nigeria has failed its responsibility, the duty it owes them. Now,
just a second, Prof. The reason I asked that question is just to stave off the situation that we have on our hands now, right? Because other states are already going around. I think was it last year or even earlier this year? About 8 or 9 states visited the AFDB headquarters in Abidjan, and they naturally are having conversations around investments, the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones project, which Nigeria is also the one that is going to guarantee. Yes. So states keep going out like that. But when these things happen, it's to the country that all of these issues arise. So that I'm just asking, I'm not saying that it's between Nigeria and China. I'm saying it is between this Chinese company and Ogun State. But as you know, if it's a splatter that once you hit it, it's really splats on the country. And that is what I'm just asking, maybe an intervention between the Chinese government and that company with the Ogun State government, perhaps maybe anyone else, could have staved off this embarrassment of a judgment against Nigeria.
Yeah, actually, I was answering that question by saying you can conduct diplomacy on different levels. What I'm saying is that the fact that it is between states and Nigeria, if Ogun State government goes to Chinese embassy, want to see your ambassador, does not still stop China or that company from vindicating their right under that particular treaty. You have an arbitration clause. Because now, why would I want to sit down with your ambassador and agree with you when I know that I'm not going to get what I really want to get from the case? Don't forget, a company that comes to your country has made a lot of investments. Sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars or sometimes billions of dollars. So why I am not going to puncture your face? Why I'm not going to say, oh, I'm just going to go litigious on you? Why I'm not going to close any other avenue for political resolution? I'm not also going to forgo my right to make sure that whatever damages, whatever injury I've suffered are properly redressed under international legal norm. That's what I'm talking about here. So we cannot simply say, oh, we're doing this and that, or Ogun State should have gone to, should have sat down with a Chinese company or China as a country and this and that. Ogun State is subnational. And as a subnational, you may not actually want to go and sit with the Chinese ambassador. That is why you have to go under the aegis of your country.
That's actually quite dramatic when at any time the ambassadors of these countries go to visit state governors. But, that's another conversation altogether, Prof. Dr. Akikugbe, let's begin the roundoff now. 1 minute each, gentlemen. So where do we go from here? Nigeria, well, it's a $70-something million business. In other words, Nigeria owes that money. Otherwise, our aircraft wouldn't have been impounded or seized, as has been said. Who pays this money? Where do we go from here?
Well, in terms of who pays the money, I'm not able to say that, but I think I can say what maybe where do we go from here in the few seconds I have. I think we cannot also dismiss, I don't think it's been said in the conversation, that at least in the public, both Ogun State and the federal government of Nigeria have said they have attempted to settle this dispute, post their award, right? They've been on the table, negotiated, and it seems that all was going well until suddenly it wasn't any longer. I think, to be realistic, they can still pursue that avenue. It does seem that both parties can attempt to reach an agreement. So that's it as far as this quick one is concerned. But going forward, I do think we have to be serious. Many states across the world are refusing to go with ISDS. ISDS is problematic. It is not academic point. We are seeing the effect it's having on us, both through PNID, and this particular dispute, even though the amount is not as much. There might be other issues that are concerned around corruption and so on and so forth. But the reality is that the economic space, that the damages that governments often get out of arbitral awards often puts them in much more dire positions than they were. In fact, think about the cost of actually litigating this dispute. Nigeria has been to the UK, US, France, Canada. They were in Quebec. So okay. This thing is not in one place. So we need to put our heads together and push against ISDS in its current form, not against arbitration, generally speaking.
Okay. Dr. Adeoye, your last words. Where do we go from here? Is Dr. Adeoye still there with us? Okay.
Yes, please. My advice is that professionals should do their job at all times, and politicians should make sure every of their action they consult with professionals. And once you do that, all this embarrassment will not be in place. Whether it's ISTS, whether it's the BIT, it's important to ensure credible, intelligent, experienced professionals in international law, international business are involved in every agreement. And where there is breach, I think we are better off if we deploy diplomacy to solving our problem before we cancel contract and then all this embarrassment is coming our way.
Okay. Prof, where do we go from here? And if you can answer that question of who pays that money.
Well, who pays the money? We have to pay the money eventually, but we can negotiate our way. On the part of the Chinese, I think they already demonstrated a bigger goodwill yesterday when they released one of the 3 aircraft. That's what I was talking about. That you can be pursuing, arbitration and at the same time be doing diplomacy at the same time. So that can go on. So eventually, I think they can come together and negotiate. We can negotiate our way up. But for me, what is important? Where do we go from here, Ayo? We need, as a country, to take our international obligations very, very seriously. Especially when it comes to investment. We cannot, on the one hand, be encouraging investors to come to our country with their hard-earned money and then, start giving symptoms out that, that we are not, taking certain things seriously. We need to just up our game.
Yeah.
We need to inspire confidence and international community that are coming to invest in our country.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your comments. Professor Demola Abbas is a professor of international law. He's also former special advisor to the Lagos State Governor on overseas affairs and investment. We've also had Dr. Olabisi Akinkugbe, who is an associate professor. He's Purdy Crawford Chair in Business Law, Dalhousie University, Canada, as well as founding editor, afronomicslaw.org. Thank you so much. As well as Dr. Ogbenga Adeoye, a lawyer and chartered accountant, also an international business law specialist. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And now we know, where do we go from here? Well, where we go from here is take a break. When we return, we have another conversation. Do stay with us.
Next level. Now hot water.
How many elephants are remaining in Nigeria? Well, I don't know if you can Google it. But if you do, you may find that we have just about 300 to 400. And is that a good thing or not? That's what this whole thing is about. Nigeria recently launched the country's first national elephant action plan, and that's what we want to talk about. The federal government says the measure is designed to protect the small and rapidly declining population of elephants in the country. You must be shocked about that, that fact, because we've often spoken about other things, other animals that are depleting in population, and the risks associated in the ecosystem and the impact it will have on our lives and on our planet. These and several other issues we'll discuss this morning with the Minister of State for the Environment, who is with us here, Isiaq Adekunle Salako. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay. How many elephants can you confirm indeed that we have just about 300 to 400 elephants in Nigeria?
Thank you once again. Well, that is the figure we're working with.
Okay.
I must say that is also a guess. In recent times, there has not been any scientific survey to firmly confirm the population of elephants in Nigeria, but as a working figure, which shows clearly that there has been massive depreciation in the number of elephants in our country.
In an ideal environment, how many should we have that will help our ecosystem?
Well, I think that is difficult to say. What I can say is that basically it is believed that once you have a cluster of elephants in any particular location that is less than 100, that set of elephants are severely threatened. So if you just oppose it beside the fact that we have elephants in about 10 locations in Nigeria, so if you distribute 300 to 400 into 10 locations, so averagely less than 50 in each location. I think it's only in the Yankari Game Reserve in Bauchi that we have about 100 elephants, which means that we can say that significantly the population of elephants in our country are severely under threat of extinction.
I don't know. So what's this National Elephant Action Plan about, really?
The plan is, well, it is one of the key pillars of our efforts to conserve our ecosystem, restore our biodiversity, protect our natural resources, because we know that elephants play some very important roles within the ecosystem. They are very important in maintaining our forests. They are generally referred to as the forest engineers. You know, they create pathways for smaller animals. They also help in dispersal of seeds and regeneration of forests. During droughts, they help a lot in creating avenue for other smaller animals to have drinking location, because they can actually create water holes in water beds. They are also important in the amount of carbon that our land can store and nitrogen that our land can store. So they also, of course, their fecal matter are also very rich. They are nutrients for other smaller insects. So, in some locations, particularly in East Africa, they play a significant role in maintaining the balance of tsetse fly, for example. You know, in ensuring that tsetse fly do not become too much in the environment. And you know, tsetse flies is a vector of a very bad disease. So generally, they are very important. They play a very special role. Beyond that, they are also a significant earner of revenue for countries that can make the best use of it for ecotourism. You find out that when you go to especially East African countries, Kenya, Tanzania, and although in South Africa like Botswana, the government and communities are generating a lot of revenue from just people coming to watch wildlife like elephants. So it also resonates with the agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to diversify the economy of Nigeria, which is also focusing on ecotourism, on promoting tourism. So all this comes together and underscores the need for us to protect the population of elephants in our country.
So what's the plan about? How do you go about it? And is there a role for Nigerians?
Yes, definitely. First, the plan has about 8 objectives. First, the plan seeks to see how to ensure that we end illegal killing of elephants and illegal trade in elephant parts, particularly the ivory. And of course, there's also a plan on how to increase the awareness, how to mobilize Nigerians, how to get them more informed about the relevance of elephants in our ecosystem. It talks about the need for us to strengthen our laws and ensure that we're able to prevent wildlife trafficking and illegal sales of wildlife parts, elephant parts. Talks about the need for implementation. Of course, we also need, part of the plan is for us to also research in terms of, now I said that what we're saying about the population is just a guess, as it were. So the plan also talks about the research. So the role for elephant, of course, it also talks about the need for us to involve communities more, you know, and you'll find out that quite a number of challenges we face with elephants. It's also because of what is called the elephant-human conflicts. I'm sure you will have read sometimes last year, for example, we had some elephants killed in the northern part of Nigeria, specifically in Borno State, because people claim that those elephants entered their farms and destroyed their crops, and they just killed, I think, 2 of them. So we also need to mobilize Nigerians, educate Nigerians, so that we can reduce the conflict that exists between humans and elephants. So those are some of the core elements of this objective of this plan.
I'm happy that you mentioned the community, because that's where these wildlife naturally live. So it means, I mean, if these people could just, kill an elephant simply because, it's violated, so to speak, their environment, perhaps also speaks to their ignorance about these issues. So I ask again, what roles are there for the people?
Well, first is that it's important, like I said, to organize communities where elephants are located, to see elephants as contributing to the ecosystem, and also to organize them in such a way that they can also generate some alternative livelihoods, economic activities around elephants. You find out that if you're able to achieve that, it helps to minimize the conflicts, because when they know that these creatures can be a source of livelihood for them, they also are out to protect the existence of those animals. So as part of involving communities, we want to see a situation where communities around where elephants are created we organize community conservation clubs, community conservation groups, who now see those elephants as their own and that must be protected, who support government machineries to ensure that those elephants are protected. That is happening, for example, already in one of our national parks in Cross River, where communities are involved in ensuring that they work with our forest rangers to ensure that those animals are protected. So, of course, it is not only by protecting those animals that we also are going to promote tourism. We also, other factors, improving our security generally, improving our infrastructure, improving our ease of doing business and all that, and creating that tourism consciousness. If you visit any of those tourist destinations, you see there's a consciousness among the people in terms of the way they welcome people at the airport, the way they receive people at the entry points, even when you go to hotels, the way they relate with you and promote tourist destinations. All those two must be promoted to ensure that at the end of the day, when we're able to achieve that, people now see elephants as a source of livelihood, and they are now very, very frontal in ensuring that those creatures are protected. I visited somewhere recently, a private conservancy, and very small place, and tell me that in a year, and annually, they generate about $6 million from visitors who come to visit their wildlife. Elephants, baboons, rhinos, and so on and so forth. Nigeria can also generate a lot of revenue from promoting nature tourism.
I think we need to emphasize that, which you just said a little more, as opposed to the trafficking that we are talking about, which needs to be reduced. Because elephant ivory, pangolin scales, and a number of those are the things that people actually traffic, for which reason we're having this conversation so that we can put pay to it. Now, how about security agencies? Because I'm not sure some of them or many of them know about these issues, these amazing initiatives that you're talking about otherwise. Because for some of them, it's good business, right? Absolutely. To just get some money from these people who are exporting these things. Anything going out of the country, they have to raise money and all of those things. So what education are we giving to them to know that, look, when these things happen, the people who are trafficking these things should be arrested or stuff like that?
Well, that is a very key component of the objective of this plan that we're talking about. It's not only even law enforcement agents, even the judiciary. So the plan also envisages a situation where law enforcement agents are well trained, are well informed. The judicial officers, judges are also trained, are well informed. And at the moment, there's a law being considered in the National Assembly, which is going to enhance our capacity to enforce wildlife conservation and to ensure that we also bring to book people who cross the line in terms of illegal wildlife trades. So that's is currently ongoing in the National Assembly. So as part of our plan, we hope to be able to also train judges, train law enforcement agents, and also create an interagency implementing a team that involves especially the custom, the NFIU, and there's, of course, our rangers, those who works in the forests, so to some extent the immigration, all these are involved, custom, all of them. So it is going to be a multi-agency arrangement in such a way that everybody's role is clearly stated out. Yes, with the Minister of Environment leading, but all agencies also contributing to ensure that we're able to enforce that. Of course, as part of that too, we're also working with our neighbors, because Nigeria is a route for some of these, for transporting some of these materials. For example, earlier this year, we signed an agreement with Cameroon, because quite a number of ivory parts or wildlife parts that are coming from East Africa or even Southern Africa goes through Cameroon, through Nigeria to Asia. So we are able to cooperate with the two countries cooperating to ensure that you are able, so that, for example, you find out that when a wildlife trafficker is arrested at the border region, it becomes an issue. Which country should handle it? And a lot of times, the arrest takes place at the border region. But once you have that kind of arrangement, you work with the arrangement, the MOU, the understanding that you already have, and it's easier to now prosecute such offenders.
Now, you've also rightly mentioned something now that there are other trafficked items like that. And so far, we've mentioned just two animals, elephants and pangolins. Are there others in our ecosystem that are already depleted that we need to repopulate so that Nigerians will at least have an understanding of these things? And then we can also join in, whether we are in the communities where these animals live or not.
Oh, yes, quite a number of people traffic in crocodile skins, birds, especially parrots, exotic birds, snake skin that they used to make bags and stuff like that. Talked about pangolin, talked about elephant, even rhinoceros. The horn of the rhinoceros is also trafficked. So these animals all play a role in our ecosystem, and of course, this particular action plan is specifically directed at elephants, but within the larger scope of restoring our ecosystem and protecting our biodiversity, all these animals also fits into it, and every effort is being made to ensure that Nigerians protect them.
I do understand that. I mean, because sometimes people don't even know the risks that they put themselves at, for all of these things. For instance, when was it? Wasn't it just last year we were talking about, about on 2019 into 2020, that we're talking about COVID-19, which is a zoonotic disease. And a number of people have no ideas, for instance, that, and then we were also hearing about mpox. Many people are not even aware that, trafficking in these animals, just killing them without any, well, for some people, it's just bushmeat, nothing more than that. But it's as dangerous as they come to people.
Right.
So what's the level of awareness? Maybe a better word would be education, but at least start with awareness of these issues in our communities, because I'm pretty sure that many people don't know.
Well, zoonotic diseases have become very important in the public health management system. And today you find out that quite a number of infectious diseases that are previously unknown are now circulating within the human communities as a result of more interaction or closer interaction with animals. This is happening because there's a lot of pressure on the ecosystem, that the animals, the natural habitats of animals are under a lot of pressure from human activities. And as a result of that, animals are now migrating even into where humans are living. And so you find out that quite a number of, you mentioned COVID, you mentioned mpox, we have Lassa fever, and so on and so forth, that are transmitted from animals to man. There's a concept of One Health, and the One Health concept is about ensuring that three key agencies of government, the health sector, the environment sector, and the agri sector, look at health with one eye. Because you find out that at the agricultural level, for example, livestock, they are in charge, and then you talk about some of the animals that are diseases that can be transmitted from livestock to human beings. All these animals exist within the environment, and of course the health system is the one that providing the health sector care for these diseases. So we have that collaboration of working together within us, between the health sector, between the environment and the agri sector, to ensure that we in the environment sector, for example, are able to manage environmental conditions in terms of waste. That, for example, when you have waste a lot in the community, what do? You increase the population of rats. And when the population of rats are increased, the risk of transmission of disease from rats to human being is increased. So for us at the environment sector, we must ensure that we control waste so that we don't unnecessarily, the population of rats are not unnecessarily increased. You know that diseases can be transmitted, for example, from chicken to human being. So when you keep livestock, the Minister of Agri is also important in ensuring that livestock farmers are well informed, are well educated, and are well monitored to ensure that even when you have disease outbreaks, as a result, within the animal system, it is quickly reported and effort is made to control it. So working in that direction, we're able to control some of the activities.
I'm not sure many people understand Mr. Salako, because I mean, just talking about that, the animal transmission of diseases from chickens to human beings. Many people just want to eat chicken suya. That's the thing that many people are aware of. Absolutely. And some would, in fact, in the recent time, I know a number of people that say, look, it's healthier to have live chicken. I mean, you kill it yourself, it's not imported and all of those things, as opposed to
No, the point is not that we cannot eat chicken.
I understand, but I'm saying, I mean, you just talked about in the keeping them, in the way we handle them. Because some people still breathe the same air as chickens in their cars. When they're going to, you just took it from the roadside or from wherever else, and then
you put it in the car with yourself.
Exactly. You breathe the same air, you put it in an air-conditioned car to drive it all the way home and all of those things. So where's the middle ground here?
Well, the basic thing is you see that a lot of time the outbreak of diseases within the animals, when you keep animals in livestock, once you have a good monitoring and surveillance system, and that is the most important element with this, such that you find out that I'm trying to remember the technical name for that disease now. When such diseases breaks out, you see the regulatory authorities going into farms where those diseases have been identified to euthanize all the animals in those farms, So it is good monitoring and surveillance system that ensures that diseases in animals that can transmit to human beings are detected very early, and the possible chain of transmission is broken. Once, for example, when you euthanize all those animals, they can no longer be consumed. They are euthanized and they are treated and buried in a very protective manner. So that is the kind of thing that we need to continuously ensure. The veterinary authorities need to be well educated, supported, to be able to carry out a lot of surveillance and monitoring activities among domestic animals, and then they must also be able to enforce some laws. For example, if you have a dog, are you vaccinating your dog against rabies? If you keep pigs, what kind of environment are you keeping it? If you are rearing livestock, are you rearing those livestock within communities that people are living? Because you are not supposed to raise livestock within where people are living. I think that even if you are going to keep maybe a few, there's a limit to how much you can keep within living environments. So these are all public health laws supported by the agri sector that veterinary authorities must be empowered to continuously monitor and enforce to ensure that we do not have continuous transmission of zoonotic diseases.
Let me quickly digress. I understand that you have a domestic elephant. Because some people are going to be wondering, well, maybe you have your foundation was very, very strong.
Well, I think that the media, I thank the media for what actually happened is that it was brought to my attention that a certain 18-month elephant was orphaned. And they're trying to raise money averagely to keep an elephant per month. Such orphaned elephants requires about $1,000 every month.
Oh, wait, pause. $1,000.
$1,000 averagely in a month to keep such elephants.
That's about 1.5 million a month.
Right.
Elephant.
I'm telling you.
Anima.
Yes.
It's okay.
So quite a number of people now gather together.
Okay.
And we are all parents, co-parents to that orphaned elephant, to support in our little ways to ensure that, because that elephant is going to be raised in captivity for about 18 years before it can be released to the forests.
Is there a way to replicate such things, such that we can repopulate, so to speak, the elephant population in the country?
Well, there's not a very strong system yet in our country. But in countries like Kenya, like Botswana, like Tanzania, there's a very strong system of raising orphaned elephants.
Sorry, my apologies. I'm actually looking at, deliberate, efforts to have them groom, elephants like that. I don't know. Maybe their gestation cycle is very short or very too long.
No, it's quite long. I think the average gestation of an elephant is about 22 months. And for an elephant to reach adulthood, I think it would take about 12 or 14 years.
Wow.
So, and when you bring in an orphaned elephant into a place where you are taking care of it, there's a process. The experts will be able to enlighten us more, but there's a process of reintroducing, because the eventual end point is to reintroduce that elephant back into the wildlife. But to introduce that elephant, first you have to raise it well, and you can only raise it. They feed them with milk, animal milk, which are very expensive, and that's. You can imagine the number of times the elephant will have to be fed per day. And they are also, after a while, they also start gradually reintroducing them and bringing them back. They take them. The elephant, they are so intelligent. I've watched them. There's a place I visited. They know where they sleep. So if they're coming, when they take them to graze and they are coming back, each person is not directed to they just go to where their house that has been constructed for them on their own. And in places where this thing is done, you see the kind of effort, that for about, I think 4 years, a human being sleep with that elephant every night. For about 4 years. So at night, there's a human being sleeping with the elephant in his abode, to ensure that because the elephant, once it is not, it's a very social animal. When there is no social environment created, it makes them aggressive. So it's something that requires a lot of energy, and we have a lot of private efforts, private NGOs doing that all over the world. We hope we can also raise the level of awareness at the level of interest in Nigeria to that extent that people can be more involved.
Well, I just wanted to quickly digress to that one. But there is something very important that you also mentioned that people need to be reminded of. And that's the fact that the Ministry of the Environment in Nigeria, be it at the federal or state level, they are in charge of, in a way, preventive health. Because most of the diseases that we have spoken about here, they are from the environment.
Right.
And if the environments are well kept, then the level of, there is a huge reduction in the possibility of health hazards and all of that.
Right.
Is this understanding well known to health authorities? Is this understanding well known to those in the agri sector, as you mentioned earlier?
The Ministry of Environment, for example, has a department that's called Pollution Control and Environmental Health. So that suggests that there's a clear link between pollution and the health of the environment. We also have the Environmental Health Officers Registration Council, which also clearly demonstrates that we realize that environmental system is very important to the health. And like I said, when we talk about the One Health thing that I was talking about, is a collaboration between the Ministry of Health at the federal and state levels, and also at the local government level, Federal Ministry of Environment, or the Ministries of Environment, Ministries of Health, and Ministries of Agri, because there is that connection. If, for example, you talk about a disease like Lassa fever, you find out that Lassa fever is the vector transmitting the disease is a rat, and what makes the rat come into contact with the food that human ingests is the way those food are kept. In some places, when they want to sun dry foodstuff, it is kept on the open, especially in the villages. They kept it roadside in the open, and rats are able to come in contact with it. They can urinate on it. Their saliva comes in contact with it, which can contain the virus that causes Lassa fever. So when we have a situation where the way we treat foodstuff in the environment is well managed, what we're doing is that we're helping the health authorities to ensure that they do not have to be running around to control or treat Lassa fever. So you find out that the influence of the environment, particularly when it comes to infectious diseases, is very, very heavy. And it is like the environment is like the tap. The health industry are like mopping the floor. If the environment that is holding the tap is not working well, they will keep mopping. Because if the drain is leaking and we are holding the tap, if we are able to close the tap, it will be easy for the health sector to dry the floor. So you find out that except we work in that, and that is why you see even when diseases like cholera breaks out, you see the Ministry of Environment working very closely, because these are related to our environmental conditions. And of course, it also speaks to issues like mental health, issues like noise level in the environment, issues like even pollution in the environment, the quality of our air. All these are also very, very important in our health status, generally speaking.
Yeah. I hope we all know that. Well, Victor Owo is listening to you, and he says that in his state, Akwa Ibom, there is a local government called Nkpat Enen, translated as the footprint or path of the elephants. He now says, of course, that was a strong migration route in the days of old.
Right.
He now says there is not one elephant, not one single elephant in Akwa Ibom. In his Akwa Ibom state now, says we need to pay more attention to these things for tourism drive.
I can agree less with him. Is spot on, because of our the way the pressure that were put on the habitat of animals, including elephants. We have completely driven them out of our environment. There's a lot of pressure. Their roots are built up. We've constructed roads there. We've constructed bridges there, housing estates there. So they're migrating. And elephants need a very wide area to roam. So such things are absolutely necessary.
Okay. Well, in January, you promised to plant and nurture at least 50 trees this year. How's that going?
Well, as a matter of fact, I think it was in July. I reached my 50th tree in July. But I thought I should go on and see whether I can reach 100. So I'm still on it. But I've done 50 already.
That's awesome. We should actually mark your your exam answer sheets.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, 100. So, well, of course, we're also aware of the Bola Tinubu Green Project, Green Heroes Project, which we understand was established to create jobs for the young and retirees in the country.
Well, the Bola Tinubu Green Heroes Project is basically designed to, apart from creating jobs, it's also to get communities more involved in conservation activities. The whole focus of that initiative is to create community forests, forests that are owned by communities. For example, our plan is that each year we can create at least 25 communities in 25 local governments of Nigeria, covering about minimum of 10 hectares of land. So what we're doing is to approaching communities directly. Please give us 10 hectares of land. When you give us 10 hectares of land, we will bring the seedlings, we'll provide the funding to plant the seedlings, and we also engage people to nurture the tree for a year. After a year, we set up a community committee that's going to be managing the forest, and we hand over the forest to the community with the condition that they cannot cut down the trees. They are going to be mostly economic trees. They can harvest the fruits, and when it gets to maturity for cutting of the trees, there has to be a joint plan between us and the community to ensure replacement of those trees. So that's the arrangement we are trying. So you find out that because we are going to get youth and retirees to help us in planting those trees, we will train them, they will help us in planting, and they will also be in charge of taking care of those trees for at least a year. So some people will be engaged for that 1 year, and we hope that this is something we can repeat every year, so that in 3 years we can cover at least 75 local governments of Nigeria.
It's getting closer to that season when dams will be opened. When is that likely to be this year?
Well, as a matter of fact, I think that, let me first say that the Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation that are in charge of dams, and when we talk about, for example, the dam in Adamawa State, the one in Cameroon, Lagdo dams, that is frequently a challenge for us. There's an understanding between the management of that Lagdo dam and our own Ministry of Water and Sanitation here to periodically exchange information on what is going on. So what determines when the dam is open is actually the water level in that dam, because they don't want the dam to force itself open. So it is better to open it and manage and release the water on a managed level. So I think that, I think so far we're hoping that this year's flood event will not be as severe as the one we saw last year. So that's just the situation. The monitoring system is on. We have the flood early warning systems that have been installed in several parts of the country, and the relevant authority issues weekly and sometimes bi-weekly advisory on the state of flooding in Nigeria, and that's inform actions at the subnational levels to plan against that.
You can't give us an idea maybe in a month or two now, because we understand it was yesterday or the day before yesterday we were getting news that about 27 states are going to be affected by flooding. And some of these may also be occasioned by, this opening of the dams and all. So what are the plans for the communities that will definitely be affected?
What we have done so far, first is to ensure that we step up our sensitization activities in terms of ensuring that our drains are well opened. We clean our drains so that water can flow properly. In addition to that, we are implementing high-impact flood control projects, particularly in areas of heavy challenge. Across the country, I think last year we implemented about 26 high-impact flood mitigation projects, constructing secondary drains, and sometimes constructing retention facilities for water, so that the impact of the drain of the flood is reduced. At the moment, you see that once the flood has happened, our role as Minister of Environment becomes reduced, because then it now becomes humanitarian response, palliative response, which is usually handled by another ministry of the federal government. But ours is basically to try and ensure that the flood is prevented through awareness creation, through creating channels for water to flow. But I must also say that it is not completely, fully within our control to say that there will be no flood, because sometimes flash flood occur when the rains fall heavier than it can be soaked into the land quickly. And of course, with challenge of climate change too, we're also faced with flooding issues on a regular basis, which is actually a global problem. But we're doing our best to ensure that our people are as much as possible protected from the negative impacts of flooding.
At the end of the day, I always go back to the people, how people are directly or indirectly affected, by these things. Still talking about the people, the federal government, decided to ban single-use plastics which is, of course, also known as on-the-go plastic. Now, we're told that the ban covers all federal MDAs.
Right.
How is that going?
Well, that is ongoing. We have a little delay in starting the implementation of that. Our plan was to have started implementation by the beginning of this month, but there's some little delays because we really need to prepare the ministries, ensure that they have the right information, and they also are able to get the right, because if you are going to say don't bring disposable plastic to the office, you must be able to provide alternatives for people to drink from, So because of those logistic problems, we're delaying a little. Maybe hopefully before the end of September, I think the full implementation of that will commence within the federal ministries, departments, and agencies.
I'll keep my other 10 questions until I have time. Isiaq Adekunle Salako, Minister of State for the Environment, thank you so much, so much for your time this morning and for educating us about some of these issues. So when we return, I'm going to toggle the arrangement a little bit. What's coming next? After now.
Check this out. What's it? It says Mr. Diso is a washed-up barrister. What did you say?
Yesterday, at the tribunal, you were drunk.
Okay. Now I've seen a number of actors there. So who is in the garden with me here now? Can you guess? I wish I had time. I would just open the phone lines, play some music, and then call you guess. The person who gets the right answer will get an iPhone 1. But I guess this morning, Damilola Ogunsi is here with us this morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
My absolute pleasure. Feels good to be here.
Yeah,
once again.
Would you have wanted to guess and win iPhone 1?
Not particularly. I would have looked forward to cash prizes or something.
Oh, well, yeah. 100 naira is cash.
Look at that. Look at that from Channel TV. Good morning. So how are you?
I'm well. It's good to have you. He's a Nigerian actor, popularly known by his stage name Goldfish. Don't really look like one. Where did that come from anyway?
Man, there are two major stories behind that name. There's a very interesting one and there's a romantic one. So do you want to toss a coin and pick one, or you want to hear the two?
I'm a guy, so I don't care, and I'm not gay, but
I mean, thank God.
Okay, which one? Anyone, you make it.
So the goldfish is my persona. That really reflects who I am. The goldfish has no hiding place, so I celebrate, my uniqueness and all that. When I was in primary school, I went to a missionary primary school, St. Clair's, and they used to ask us not to go to the convent. But I grew up with a family that treated me like everyone else. So I never felt any different in school. So we went to the convent, and one day they found us, and they shouted, and we all ran away. And they didn't chase us. But before the end of the class, that's how the headmaster and I think someone else just popped into the class and came to fish me out and said, don't you know that you are a goldfish? So that was where it actually started. That was the genesis of it. Okay. But, further along down the line, now this is now the romantic part where the name surfaced again. And that was about 2009 or 2008 or 9 or so. So I had this lovely girlfriend I was dating then. And her sisters used to call me the goldfish. Your goldfish is here, your goldfish is here. So I was about to restart my MCing career because I'd had several names from secondary school to university, different names I've used. So I just thought, but the goldfish, actually, your goldfish here, your goldfish here. So the goldfish. So the next event I was going to do, I just told the announcer that introduce me as the goldfish, and he did. And I've lived with that, the fact, and it was amazing. People applauded, and it was lovely. So now it's the stage name I've adopted all the while because it also shows who I am, the goldfish. I have no hiding place.
You can't hide.
I don't even try.
Even if you wanted to.
No, I could. You need to see some of my films that you wouldn't even know I was the one. The way I was, they have a new film coming that you wouldn't know that I'm the one in that.
I'm looking forward to not seeing you.
So, then you're going to enjoy that one.
Okay. It's good to see you again.
Same here, sir.
But you were a merchant banker. What you doing in front of the screens? Bankrolling the films?
Well, yes. Now you see, I like a couple of things you said. Bankrolling the films because that's actually the next thing on my table right now. Bankrolling films and film producing. I actually just finished my directing class. Yesterday was my last day in directing school, so bankrolling will be there. But how did I get from banking to acting? So I grew up in a family where we loved films. My father was a, classic man. We watched all the classic films, Gone with the Wind, My Fair Lady, Sounds of Music, Raid of MTV, those kind of classic
The King
films.
and I.
Those kind of films, The Wizard of Oz. So I always loved films. So anytime we watched the film at home, I was the one who would act the character. I'll play my character. The honky-tonk man, I'll play the guitar all day. So then I started doing drama and theater plays since primary school. I even remember lines from my first play in primary 4. So all the way, my primary school, secondary school, church, polytechnic, university, all my life I've been doing, theater, drama, stage, MCing. But I always wanted to be an actor. And I got into banking, which I absolutely loved. I worked with Stanbic IBTC Bank for 9 years. Loved it. But I was doing that on the side. But eventually I knew, I had to ask myself, okay, where am I going really? What do I want to do with my own life? And I realized that, look, you are an entertainer. You want to do this. So I went to film school. That's the New York Film Academy in Los Angeles. I studied acting for film. I came back and it was too clear that I was just going to resign. So I resigned. And that movie we just saw at the first movie they showed, the trailer they showed, that was my 7th film. And that was the film that actually brought me out there. So I just basically resigned from the bank. People couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, but I just knew it was time and I took the bull by the horns, resigned. And post-banking, it's been 7 years now and it's been very good.
Wow. Awesome. Must have taken some scary courage.
Honestly, I still think back now, I'm like,
what were you thinking?
What were you thinking? But the beautiful thing is that I don't have any regrets. Not for one day, never. It's been an amazing journey. And I sincerely wish that, people would just go for their dreams. Go for what you really want in your heart.
It's easy for you to say, some people would say, and here is why. There is someone watching right now who wants to go into films. Someone wants to go into movies. Someone wants to go into music. Somebody just wants to go into the cottage industry. Someone just wants to sit down and weave all day. But then when they look at their bills, they're like, I'll do it tomorrow.
All right, so this is where I'm going to comment that, look, the thing is, okay, what options do you have? It's either you live the dream or you don't live the dream, but you'd always need to have a plan. So I also had a plan that, okay, certainly, because before I also moved to films, I worked for 9 years in banking. 9. That was almost a decade. So I had time to save, to plan, and I was also doing a little bit of it by the side. But there came a time where I knew you either have to jump now because it might be too late. So eventually I still come back to the fact that there must be a plan. Then whatever you want to do, you can't just jump into it. Start doing it on the side. So if you have a 9-to-5 job and you want to sing, start finding a way to sing on the side. There will come a time where as you're feeding it, it will grow enough, but when you can take a risk. But you must take a risk. You must take a risk. Absolutely. That's the only that's what makes it all worthwhile, that you take a risk.
Now, so you jump. And then you get into the puddle called Nollywood. And then you find that, wow, I think I need to find a new pair of shoes. Or I think I need to, I was standing so well in banking, my feet were solid on the ground, but now it's like this sand is washing off of my feet. How did you find your feet?
All right, so firstly, I'm going to firstly say that, look, God was also instrumental. I'm going to put that out there, that God really helped me. And so first off is the fact that I'm talented, and I thank God for that. I built that over time. But I took a risk, remember, and I went for an audition. So this movie with Kunle Afolayan on the Tribunal, which was the movie that brought me out there, it was an audition I went for.
Wow.
I've never met Kunle Afolayan before, didn't know him. I just came back from film school. I didn't even see the audition. A friend of mine, Debo Johnson, who were together in film school, sent me the audition notice. There's this audition. So I'd done a couple of films in Abuja then. I was living in Abuja, like 6 films, just like, 1 scene, 2 scenes. I didn't do all that Fanning the King one. So I done that. So eventually, so the day before, and this is where I think this is where I see the God factor. A day before the interview, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go for it. I just felt, why don't you just go for it? And I was in banking then. So, and when I was in banking, I used to like to dress sharp, 3-piece suits. I love suits. I'm a James Bond kind of guy. So that day on a Friday, rather than wear native, I wore suit, 3-piece suit, everything, flew to Lagos for the audition, got to the audition, we met, and it was coincidental that he needed an albino for the film. The albino in the film was a banker. I was a banker at that time, and then I was dressed like a banker. So it was easy for him to see that. So that was how I got that job. So it was from my performance in that job that people saw, oh, this guy, who's this guy? There's no albino in the industry. Where did this guy come from? Such amazing performances. Then I started getting there. Then I also looked at what other things do I have that I could use. I also know that my voice, so I got in touch with the Voiceover Academy. That's the best voiceover school, in Nigeria, in West Africa, actually. These guys are amazing. So I did voice training at the Voiceover Academy. I trained Sheon Shobon, heads that, and it was amazing. So from there, I started getting jobs. I've done voice for FCMB, I've done for Kuda Bank, I've done for a couple of other people. I MC as well. So I brought out everything I do in the entertainment industry, MCing, voice, acting, like, okay, I'm going to be there. And that's how it's worked out, from one job to another job, to great jobs, to high-profile jobs, to big-budget jobs. I just keep going. And I also knew that I needed to push a certain frontier. We don't have people living with albinism in the industry. And I had to okay, I'm going to go headlong and make it happen. I mean, I had one director who had said, why do you want to be an actor? Do you see any albino in the industry? And I thought to myself, voila, then that's the trick. If there's nobody there like me, then that's why I should be there. That's also one, apart from my passion and talent. So I didn't see it as something to scare me. I thought, if there's nobody there, then do it. And whenever you get a role, play. And there's no role I've played that anyone has ever said, oh, anyone can do it better. No, my roles are my roles. And now we have lots of people with albinism right there in the industry who I mentor and support. Everybody's just doing their thing. So it's been a good ride. Tough. Let me not sound like it's tough. It's tough because sometimes you don't get to work. Sometimes the work comes, and sometimes producers may still look at the stereotypical type. How do we place this guy? But I keep showing that I'm just like
we need to talk about that because. To a good number of people, even to you, your own situation may be peculiar, but so is the situation of other people. They have their own peculiarities as well. I mean, they would also come sit in the same chair you're sitting in and say, it's been tough. For instance, I'll tell you my job is tough.
Right? I mean, it better be tough. But you're doing an amazing job out there. I mean, look at you. Every day, you're shining out there whenever we see you. So, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm proud of you. You're doing great.
Well, we haven't gotten to the point where you interview me. I'm the one interviewing you.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, it's not an interview yet. That's a compliment.
Okay, I'm just kidding. So tell us about those challenges.
Okay. So I'm in a society where, firstly, the issue of albinism is grossly misunderstood, with a lot of myths and a lot of misconceptions and a lot of whatnot and all that. There's the perspective that people just look at, Yoruba say that, Orisha laughing. So there's the people who have Orishalized me. So, they're bring palm oil. Yeah. I mean, and palm oil is expensive now. I wish they would. With chicken and all that, just to lay at the entrance of my house, and rice and all that. I think I would eat more food chop. So there's that. That misconception and all that. So there's also the fact that, a lot of producers say, okay, if it's in the film, is it the car? Is it fit for the character? Does it look like everyone else? So I know there's that thing that goes on the other ground. But one of the things that I've been doing is to push for inclusion, firstly, but to also show people that, because on a regular day, I live a normal life. There's no way that, it's not like I'm living like an albino, for example. I live a normal life. I wake up, I drive my car, I go to where I want to eat, I meet the people I like, I'll say hello to the ladies I fancy, I'll do whatever I want to do, just like a regular guy. So that's one of the things I try to portray in my characters that has also helped me, that when I play a role, you don't see the skin tone, you see the character, and that takes a lot of work and a lot of skills and talent, which I thank God for, and a lot of continued training. So that's one of the things that's helped me. But also it's hard because I may just not be the regular for everything, so which I can do. So slowly and surely, it's daily trying to be persistent and show that I can play lover boy, I can play anything. So now there are roles that I normally play easily now, comedy, villains, doctors, lawyers, those ones comes easy and all that. They usually just give the lover boys to Kunle Remi most of the time, and those kind of guys. But yeah.
So that's your competition? No,
he's not competition. No, he's a very good friend. I am the only competition I have. I'm not competing with anybody.
No, I was just kidding about that lover boy role. So
No, but I'm actually curious, and I played one or two, but I like to just step in and play a lot of, so that I can also show that look, man, I got a lot there as well, because at the end of the day, it's showing that it can be done, and that's what I've shown so far. But yeah, I'd love to step to some of those roles. And what I'm also doing is I'm also in the process of creating some of my own shows, because sometimes if they don't give you the plate of food, you can just cook it yourself, then serve the world, and look, see, I could cook this.
Well, wait until I get into the kitchen. But to the industry. It's actually very interesting, because I've been around for long enough to know that the entertainment industry, and I'm taking it holistically, has evolved.
Oh, yes.
It has evolved. Back in time, the only songs you listened to were what we called old school now.
Yeah.
The Shalamars, the Bob James, the James Browns.
Oh, okay. You're quite older than I am.
As I was saying, so all those ones, but now we call them old school now, right? Same thing with the movies, same thing with the series, the Love Boats, the Charlie's Angels, the Hawaii Five-O, the Dallas, and the rest of them. Those are the things. But today we seem to be having, those are the things we saw then. But even then, we had these Nigerian series like the Village Headmasters, the Masquerades, and Uchenkus, and all those series. In terms of evolution, what have you seen? What do you like? What do you want to be done better?
Okay, so far so good. There's been we are evolving. Now, first off,
we're still evolving.
Yeah, we're still evolving. We're going to be evolving for a long time. We always just keep evolving. We never stop evolving. So we're going to thank God for where our music is at. Afrobeats to the world. So in that area, we are leading. But our films are also catching up. they're becoming better. We're now telling better stories. Thankfully, we now have Netflix, we have Prime, we have Paramount, we have all these distribution channels that have come to Nigeria. So we now have bigger platforms to put our films on. So that also now puts a pressure from top to bottom, meaning that we need to, because now that our films go around the world, we now need to start producing better films. So if you notice,
competitive ones.
Yes, also, yes. And, films that would also make money. So we're now telling better stories. Acting is getting better. The storylines are getting better. Cinematography is getting better. Costuming is getting better. The whole food chain in Nollywood industry is everybody is now finding a spot. Like, you look at big films like Gangs of Lagos that went all around the world. That was a story told by Jade Oshibero. Those kind of movies now are coming out and going out there. So over time, we're not there yet. We're not at the big budgets there, and we're not even trying to compete with Hollywood at the moment, because we can't, because we don't have that budget. But one thing I must say is that Nollywood is an industry that is making miracles with the little they have. We're making a lot of miracles. Look at that, and like you talked about series as well. There's some major series that have been coming up. Look at what Kunle Afolayan has done with Anikulapo. At the moment, we're shooting the second series now. So Anikulapo is also that a big series that's going over the world. We're telling original African stories. There's a new film that we have that's coming on the 30th of August. It's called The Weekend. Now, it's a thriller. So Nollywood is now evolving, and we're now beginning to make thrillers, like real thrillers. If you're going to go to the cinema, you should go with someone so you can hold someone's hand while watching it. But it's a high-budget film made by Trino Motion Pictures, and it's well done. But it's a thriller. So we're beginning to take bigger risk. We're beginning to enter into, bigger waters. We're beginning to do bigger films. We're doing action now. So we're evolving. We're constantly evolving. And every time we keep pushing the bar. We keep raising the bar. So I'm really proud of Nollywood. Like I said, it's an industry making miracles out of nothing. But we are growing. We're evolving. And yes, there's a very big future. Now we're having collaborations. More people are coming in. The whole market, they're interested in what's going on in Africa. By 2030, we'll be doing serious miracles.
I'm actually very excited, and what's the word now? I'm very hopeful, and here is why. So many people are doing so many things now that they probably never thought they would.
Yes.
And I'm very sure that the forefathers of movie making in Nigeria are very proud. Jimmy Odumosu's, this other guy who made the black president, and so many of them like that. They are quite, But one thing that we perhaps need to watch, one of those things I think we perhaps need to begin to watch, is the entry level.
Okay.
Someone just sleeps and wakes up, can't speak a word, can't even string a sentence together in local parlance without using some words that shouldn't be used.
Okay.
And they want to act. Oh, I've seen that Damola Ogunsi, that guy is amazing. I want to be like him, and that's all.
Thank you.
As I was saying, that's all. They just want to get in simply because someone is making money, someone is making a name. So do you think there is a need for entry level, for acting in the country?
Yes. So this is what's going to eventually happen. Now that Nollywood is stepping out into the world, producers are very intelligent people who understand that now that your films are crossing the borders, they're not limited to cinemas in Nigeria, crossing the borders, you need to put your best foot forward. So it's now who has the real talent, the real acting that's global. You don't want somebody to watch your film. You don't want a Martin Scorsese to watch your film in Hollywood and laugh and say, who are these jokers? So everybody's now trying to put their best foot forward. And there are lots of, actors coming up who are hot and hungry. So what that is eventually going to translate to is that it's important that we begin to have solid film schools. If you want to become a pilot, you just don't go and tinker with the plane and jump in and try to... You don't want to become a lawyer, you have to go to law school. You want to become a doctor, you have to go to medical school. Nollywood has just become a big orphanage for everybody. Once you don't have anything, you just jump in. But it's going to come to a time where, and that's before the end of this decade, where the wheat will be separated from the chaff. Because those who have real talent will now begin to cross international boundaries. Those who don't have will be limited to now they'll still continue working, but they'll be limited to certain audiences where they'll focus on. So
I don't even see, my apologies.
No problem.
I don't even see that them really stepping into those shoes. Here is why. I mean, you want to put your movie on Prime, you want to put it on Netflix, you want to put it on Show, Mac, whatever other platform. Yes, you are right. You want to put your best foot forward. So who's going to put someone on the screen that's going to douse the tension of their...
Yeah, so what I was saying is that you see those people here. No, that's what I was saying, that the wheat will be separated from the chaff. There are some people who will be in those major works. Those who refuse to evolve, they will still have a certain audience.
Where, like people, on stage play,
they will still have all those people. They will still do things that are put on YouTube. See, one big fear about Nollywood is that it's not everybody that consumes Netflix content or Prime content or Showmax content. Yeah. There are some people who they are on YouTube, home video, CD, they are there. All those films. There's I don't want to call any name in particular, but there are regions where they are. Let me give you a case example. God rest his soul. God rest his soul. So rest in peace. There was a time I was in Abuja and Mr. Ibu came, and he and I and a friend of mine, Henry Shield, we actually went out. You know, we wanted to get a couple of things. And we stepped into a store, and so in the front of that store in Wuse 2, there are lots of like abokis and all that, and you know, the shop attendant, all those people were following him like he was Moses about to cross the Red Sea.
Wow.
They were just behind him. What am I trying to say? There is a demography he caters to. So there's a demography it caters to. You may not find the average, you may not find the average Nigerian. You may not find, there are some people at the bottom of the food chain who will watch all those videos, and they won't make more money. They'll just be there. So, but rounding off, what I'm just trying to say is that it's important that, these film schools, that we begin to have them, so that people want to enter into the industry, train before you enter, so that you can go far. That's what I really think.
It's well, you've already given us an idea of what to expect from you. The next one.
Have I?
Okay.
Oh, I have not. I have not.
Okay.
So where am I now? So we have a couple of films. We have a couple of films coming out from now to the end of the month. We have, at the end of this month, August 30, we have the biggest thriller that has ever been shot in Nigeria. The Weekend is coming on August 30. It's going to be in all cinemas. Actually, our movie was the only movie that was accepted at Tribeca Film Festival in New York in June. The only movie from Nigeria. It's that good. It's being talked about. Directed by Daniel Uriahi. There's a serious buzz. We have Buchi Franklin in it. Uzo Amaka is there. I am there. Kepi Ekpenyong is there. Gloria Young is there. Couple of seasoned actors. Brutus is there. Couple of seasoned actors. Next month we have Lisa B coming out. We have Olufemi coming out. I have a couple, about four or five other films coming out. We have Make Mission coming out. So Son of the Soil. I shot Son of the Soil with Raz Adoti from Hollywood. He came all the way from Hollywood with his crew to shoot it there. So from now to the end of the year, I got films basically coming out every month that my lovely, beautiful fans watching this should look up to. So, and a couple of action movies as well. So we have a major action film. You've never seen an action film like that. Olufemi is coming up shortly. But above all, I'm stepping into production as well. There are some things I want to do. There are some characters I want to play that presently nobody is casting for them. So I'm going to create them. There's also a new show that's coming that has to do about cars. That's coming as well. We've already shot the pilot for that. So lots coming, production, directing. My voice gigs as well. I'm doing some serious voiceover works, and especially in conjunction with Voiceover Academy. So yes, there's a lot to look forward.
Absolutely.
I'm hosting events and all, so there's a lot to look forward.
So well, hopefully maybe somewhere along the line, just one missus will just come and anyway. Don't talk about.
We can talk about. Oh man,
don't talk about that one yet. Don't talk about
that. That's coming too. With a set of that has to come now. Me, father. Future father of triplets. Future father of triplets. No, that's
Damilola Ogunsi, Nigerian actor, banker, movie banker. What else now?
Banker, realtor, car enthusiast,
etc,
voiceover artist, lover boy.
Is that on your card too?
Well, I mean, it's got to be there, man.
Thank you so much for your time today.
My absolute pleasure. This was really enjoyable. I had a good time.
Oh, you better.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, anyway, we'll talk about the business of it later. We're back right after now, and something that you want to do. Do you want to lose weight or you want to keep fit? That is our home stretch today. Stay with us. Weight loss and keep fit, all I was getting was weight loss. So it sets the mind wondering whether we make the mistake of thinking that losing weight is the same thing as keeping fit, or that to keep fit, you have to lose weight. Joel Uzamere is here with us this morning. He is CEO of IREP. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Answer that question.
Well, yeah, so there are obviously two different things. When we talk about weight loss, we're essentially talking about a reduction in your total body mass. So, for instance, if you say weight loss, for instance, what you're thinking about is calorie deficit. You're trying to reduce the amount of energy that you have stored in your body, which we know is stored as fat. So that's weight loss.
I don't want to lose energy. I want to lose fat. I want to lose weight.
Fat is energy. The food you eat is converted to energy, which helps you function. The reason why you're able to talk to me is because you've eaten. That food is converted to energy.
It's the unused one that becomes fat.
Yes. So when you don't, fantastic. So when the amount of energy that your body needs is lower than the amount of energy you take in, then there's stored energy, or let's say stored calories. So that's the concept of weight loss. Now, when we say fitness is simply the physical ability for you to go about with your daily activity without undue fatigue or stress, as it were, and still be able to have enough energy for emergency or leisure. That's really what fitness is. So fitness and weight loss are not the same thing, obviously. So everyone should be fit, but not everyone needs to lose weight. You see the point? So
you need to say that again.
Everyone should be fit, but not everyone needs to lose weight.
You hear?
Yeah,
you were saying something.
Yeah,
because the reason for the question is really not far-fetched. There are those who, in the process of trying to keep fit, they lose weight so much they're unfit.
Fantastic.
Now there are those who, even watching us right now, are wondering how come they feel as fatigued as they do, even though they exercise all the time.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I mean, these are great questions. The first, maybe I'll start with the second one. They exercise all the time, and maybe they are fatigued. So a couple of things will be the reason for that. So first of all, you want to find out if you are overtraining. Now, the fact that you're exercising, for instance, and you exercise for 2 hours does not necessarily mean that you've burnt calories for those 2 hours. Now, one of the best ways to lose weight so that you can go about your day, remember fitness is what you want to concentrate on, is that you think about what we call the basal metabolic rate. That means the total amount of energy that your body needs just to survive. It's also called resting metabolic rate. So what does my body need for my heart to beat, for the blood to go around my body, for my brain to function? That's that amount of calories. Now there's the amount of calories that you get, that your body uses from activity, whether it's planned activity like exercise, or it's just the fact that you're walking to the bus stop or you're picking up stuff. That's one. Then there's calorie burn from eating foods that like protein, that help in the proper digestion in your body, and also is high on calorie. So if you put those three things together, that is what will help you lose weight the way you ought to. So let me say this to you. Your BMR is about 60% of energy consumption. That's your basal metabolic rate, 60 to 75, depending on the textbook you are reading. Your normal activity, exercise that you do, we call thermogenesis or so, that one takes about 20%. So that's the exercise. It accounts for 20% of weight loss, quote and unquote. And then the food you eat, about 10%. So what you want to look at is, what is my basal metabolism? What am I taking in? What does my body need? And what am I taking in? So if you simply do the calculation, if your body needs 2,500 calories to just stay alive, and maybe you need another, maybe 500 calories for your day and all that, that means that you're consuming 3,000, you're using 3,000 calories every day. All you simply need to do is to ensure that you're consuming less than 3,000. What I said, do you understand what I just said?
I heard what you just said.
But it didn't enter.
Wait. I'm trying to understand it. I need 3,000 daily.
Yes.
And I'm supposed to take in less than 3,000.
Yes, for weight loss.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not. The funny part is, if you calculate your, because there are two ways that can happen. So it's either I increase my basal metabolism. So if my body needs only 2,500 calories to stay alive, there are ways I can increase that energy need. Exercise, proper exercise, developing
so I just
muscle mass.
Increase my activity level.
Yes, increase your activity level and develop your muscle mass essentially. So doing weight training will increase your basal metabolism. So if before my body was using, let's say 2,000, and now I'm exercising, my body is now needing 2,500. Do you understand? So there's a 500 that, because of the way my muscle mass has grown, because of the way I'm eating, I've increased that. Are you with me? So if I then eat my regular, maybe 2,000 calories or 2,500 calories, and I also then exercise, I have activities that I do during the week, there will be a calorie deficit. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Automatically a weight loss process.
That is a weight loss process. That's the natural weight loss process. That is what any qualified fitness professional will do for you. They will simply calculate your basal metabolic rate, calculate the calories you use for your activities, including your work, whether it's sedentary, whether it's a bit active. They will multiply it by the BMR, and then they will advise you on food that are high in that helps to burn calories quickly. Now, doing those things over a period of time will help you lose weight. So scientifically, you're supposed to lose about 3,000 to 3,000 calories per week. That's about 1 pound per week, safely. That's how to lose weight. So so
not daily jogging and
no. It's still part of it. Don't forget, you are trying to increase the usage of energy.
Okay.
You're not trying to
and not decrease my intake.
Yes, of course. No, so it depends. So it depends on what you are eating.
No, wait. You said I need 3,000 calories a day.
Yes.
Now I want to lose
weight. Let's say you want to lose weight.
Let's say I want to lose
5 kg.
5 kg.
Yeah.
And I'm taking 3,000 calories. You said that in order for me to lose this 5 kg, I need to bring it down to, say, 2,725 calories a day consumption.
Yeah.
So if I increase, without increasing my food intake, I can cut down on what I eat, and then I'll lose weight.
Agreed.
So what do I need to exercise for?
So that is the difference between weight loss and fitness.
Okay.
Now, if you say all I need to do is just lose weight, exercise is not about weight loss. Exercise.
But please tell us that properly, because
it's not about weight loss.
People have that impression that.
So, for instance, you have different systems in your body. Let's start with one of the most popular and important, cardiovascular system. That is all the organs in your body that is in charge of how oxygen go around your body. And if we say oxygen, that means energy and every other thing that you need, okay? So your heart, your lungs, and your blood vessels. If those organs are not working properly, if you lose all the weight that you want to lose, you will not live long. If your heart collapses now, you're gone. If your lungs collapses now, you're gone. If you have issues with your blood vessel, from tendinitis to all sorts of stuff that you can have, you are gone. So when we do exercise, that's why I said we don't do exercise for weight loss. We don't necessarily do exercise so that we can look like Johnny Bravo. You don't do exercise so that you can look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You are simply exercising to keep fit, so that you can live a better life. Yes, you can enjoy, your life. So you need to exercise so that you can keep your heart, your lungs healthy. You need to exercise so that your joints and your bones can be strong and healthy, so that by the time you are 50 or so, you don't start struggling with arthritis. It is weight-bearing exercises that fights away things like arthritis, not cardiovascular, and it's not a function of weight loss. Are you with me? So whether you are overweight or you are not overweight, you need to exercise so that your body can be fit enough to do what it needs to do and can live longer. And of course, you know that when you exercise, what we call NCD, non-communicable diseases, is technically what you fight off. Because when you don't exercise, you begin to have this high blood pressure and all sorts of diseases. Now that is the biggest killer till today. That it affects your productivity when you don't exercise. It affects your mental health when you don't exercise. It affects your mood when you don't exercise. There are so many important things that come from you exercising daily.
But you see, the issue that you mentioned now, and I think it's quite important for people to pay attention to it. And if you do not agree, let's know why. Weight loss can be achieved by exercising. Is it possible? Is that correct?
Weight loss can be achieved
by exercising.
There's no one way to weight loss. Exercise, food, and sleep is weight loss. There's no, so it's like you're trying to fix.
Why are you being so brutal this morning?
No, I'm not being brutal. I'm trying to be honest. You asked that the way, it's like you're trying to get to destination.
So if I sleep too much now, I won't lose weight?
No, that's not the point.
What are you talking about?
No, so you said the road to weight loss is what? You said food, exercise. And I'm saying it's not only exercise. I'm saying there are a couple of things. On your journey to, if you're going somewhere, the destination and where you're going to matters. So to get to the weight loss you are going, your food is important.
Cutting it down.
As well, not just cutting it down. There's some food you need to put in, and then some food you need to remove. As well as exercising. As well as adequate rest. Part of the adequate rest is not overtraining. Part of this rest is that your body actually begins to develop when you sleep. Do you understand? So that is why rest is important. Now, when you don't rest properly, you don't even have enough strength to exercise. When you don't rest properly, you begin to feel, fatigue. And some people, the way they react to being fatigued is that they start to eat. Yeah. Some people are tired. They're like, man, so it's holistic. When you want to get to weight loss, it is your food, your exercise, the type of exercise you are doing is very important. And then how well or how you are resting is also important. That's why I mentioned those three things. So
I was actually trying to help someone to feel better about themselves. Because no particular person in your mind, but
yeah.
I see when I'm on my exercise walks, I see a good number of people who are walking, and I have this feeling that they're doing it with the hope that they will lose weight. And there are those who have been made to believe that they want a major way to lose weight is to exercise more. But just a second, you have said here now that exercising is good because it will increase your
energy.
You burn up some energy, which is
lean
the
muscle
fat.
is developed.
But you also said that you develop muscles, which can make you eat more.
No, develop. Okay, so that's where there's a bit of misconception. So developing muscle doesn't mean you are eating more.
It means your body consumes more.
Yes.
So why wouldn't I eat more?
No, it just means that instead of the fat going to go and sit down somewhere, it's being used.
When it is
Which
used,
do you prefer?
And when it is used, this one will be crying, no food, angry.
It's because you have not trained your your mind on how to eat.
You train your stomach not to be hungry.
So at the end, let me say something to you. Let me say something to you. If when was the last time you ate things like just tomatoes or cucumber or garden eggs? When was the last time you just sat and you ate that? Or carrots?
I'm the one asking you questions. Don't come and turn the table on me.
No. The reason I'm asking you is that you don't have to starve to actually, burn out calories.
Okay.
I just mentioned those things that you can slice as snacks and have in a pack. And when you're hungry, you eat them. But you know what we eat instead of those? Shawarma. And biscuits.
When you say eat vegetable, eat this one, this one. Somebody will say, I'm not a goat.
So let me even put it another way. Some people eat anyhow. It's like when I'm eating, till I cannot move. Then I'm not eating. And then they're asking why, they're wondering why they are sleeping. So when we work with corporate organizations, for instance, this part of the things we do is that we work with the personnel on what the content of their lunch is. Because at the end of the day, productivity literally plunges by 12.
Joel.
This now you thought the conversation will go.
Wait. It's enough for today.
Okay.
Oh God.
Choose fitness.
No, I think you're gonna have to come back to talk about weight loss.
Okay.
The reason is many people are intimidated by their looks.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not looking good enough. Oh, my ears are too big. Oh, my ears are too big. I need to exercise. I don't know how that happens.
I know what you mean.
So, but you have told us that fitness should be the primary goal.
Agreed. Yeah.
But then there is the place of self-esteem that people calculate, that people align their looks with.
Yeah.
We'll come to all of that some other time. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Joel Izamere is CEO IREP. And that's our show today. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your day so far. Go ahead, go out there and win. I'm Ayo Makinde. Bye for now.